Well, we're starting the show. Joe and I are prepping, and we're going to talk about the fact that this guy, this triple murderer, who
Timothy Pauley.
Yes, who Mr. Inslee, Governor Inslee, at the last minute said, yeah, let's let him go. Joining us on the phone, former Congressman Dave Riker, Sheriff Dave Riker. When I saw the story, I thought, I wonder if Dave had anything to do with this. And we spoke just minutes ago. This has been a very long road for the family, and you have been beside them. Been working on this case for how long?
Gosh, it's got to be at least 10 years trying to keep him in prison. But I was one of the original investigators in 1980 at the Barn Door Tavern. I met Angie and Kelly when they were 9 and 13 years old, and I helped carry the bodies out of the Barn Door Tavern and help process the scene.
We don't need to go into the details. They're horrible enough.
Yeah.
But the family met with Inslee numerous times, and I assume pleading with everything they have left of their broken hearts that that man should remain behind bars for the rest of his life after a triple murder. When you were working with the family for the last 12 years, were they losing hope? And did you think that Inslee would the last minute all of a sudden decide to let this guy go?
No, I do think that, Angie, Maggie at the time too, who's the mom and has since passed away this past January, and Kelly were at times probably downhearted and didn't see any success ahead. They happened to reach out to me when I was in Congress. So I think it was my last couple of years. They didn't realize that I actually helped arrest Pauley and Smith. But we went through a series of parole board hearings and ISRB hearings and listening to the family, as we just did on your show, John. The ISRB members, in my opinion, were just stone cold to the emotions that these two young women were expressing. And at the time, Maggie, one of the victims who was hung with the electrical cord, and, just thankful that her cord broke and she was able to regain consciousness and call the police. But when you hear the pain in their voices, how can you not help but show some mercy, some passion, some compassion? I didn't see any of that from the board, but I also didn't see any of that from Tim Pauley. And when I talked to Jay Inslee finally in 2022, and I heard they were going to finally, Angie, Kelly and I heard they were going to release him, that was going to be their recommendation. I asked to speak with Jay Inslee, and fortunately he called me back, and we had a discussion about psychopaths. And I said, look, you can't let this guy out again. He tried to kill 5 people. And he said, well, how do you know he's not remorseful like any psychopath would not be? And I said, well, I happen to be one of the few people in the world that have interviewed 2 psychopaths, and that's Ridgway and Bundy. And, in my opinion, Pauley had the same stone cold killer eyes and depth of evil in his eyes that I saw in Ridgway and Bundy.
Well, there must have been something that Bob Ferguson, Governor Ferguson, saw, because he canceled the parole granted by former Jay Inslee for Pauley.
Yeah.
So now I assume, I don't know if he's going to come up again to meet before the parole board, but congratulations to Governor Bob Inslee, or Bob Ferguson, who sees that, I guess, looking into the eyes. It is such an odd thing, right? I mean, sit there and look at this person, and you have to be convinced that this person is remorseful. And they've got all these, sort of gates you have to go through. You have to know that what you did was wrong, But I'm sure if you sit in those prison cells long enough and you talk to other people, they tell you how to play the system. I'm going to take a very jaundiced view. They tell you how to play the system, what you're supposed to say, what the board wants you to say, and then you say those things. And then I guess at that point, they feel like, well, you've answered all of our questions correctly, so the freedom is yours, and the 3 lives that were lost, well, but you're remorseful for things that you did.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the last hearing, it was a Zoom hearing, and he was given the opportunity to express his sympathy, and ask for forgiveness and take responsibility. But he didn't do that. And so what they did, they gave him a list of things that he needed to do, drug and alcohol rehab, and he had to take some classes on how to discover how to be remorseful. And that's where all of a sudden we saw he's now remorseful, and that's what Jay Inslee saw. And fortunately for us, as I talked to Jay and Kelly and Angie, voiced their opinions loud and clear, Inslee decided to leave him there. Well, now the board has decided that I guess he now has some remorse for his crimes, and Inslee agreed. I too, I ran against Bob for about a year and a half, and when people deserve a positive word, I will say that, I'm glad to see that the governor stood up for the family, had the courage to meet with the family, watch them as they, through unexplainable emotion at the loss of their father and the near death of their mother, go through the details of that crime. And I have to give Ferguson credit. He invited them to his office, and he listened to them and made the right decision. He stood up for what's right. He stood up for victims. And, I've always said, let's stop blaming victims in this upside-down world that we're living in, and stop excusing criminals from the heinous act that they've committed on innocent citizens.
We're speaking with Dave Riker, former congressman, and then also known as the sheriff around here. So, Dave, how do these people get appointed to the board, the parole board? How does that work?
They're appointed by the governor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do they give any indication of, where they sort of stand politically, or are they individuals that see the perpetrator as the victim, that sort of mentality, right? That, well, the system failed you, and we're not going to fail you again, even though you've got blood on your hands. There's a place for redemption. I'm a Christian. I believe in redemption, but at the same point, you must be heartily sorry for the sins you have committed. You have to know that you've done something wrong, and you had a chance to speak to this triple murderer. And while you talk to him and you see things, and again, you don't have the power to see his soul or his heart or anything, but you, because of your past experience with sociopaths, and I don't know if this guy has been considered or diagnosed as sociopathic, as you mentioned Bundy, and of course the Green River Killer as well. But you saw indications that this guy had he was presenting with the same qualities.
Well, yeah. When you see someone who consistently says, it really wasn't my fault. My partner, Smith, is the guy that really did. I was just there. I just happened to be there, and I did drink a lot that night. I had some alcohol, or I was high on drugs, and I had a broken arm at the time. My arm was in a cast, and so I was taking medication, and I really wasn't aware of my actions. And so when you see, especially cops, and I did that job for 33 years, and then, of course, when you're in Congress, you see a few people that are like put the knife in your back too. So you get pretty good at looking at people and determining whether or not they're really remorseful, whether they really care about people, and really whether or not they truly want to make a change in their life and they're rehabilitated. I just got to say, I'm just a human being that has some experience. In my experience, I would say that Pauley was not there. And maybe one day he will be there, but he's definitely not there the last time I saw him. And, he had a chance to be a productive member of society. And whatever happened that night between him and his partner, they decided that as a member of the community, they would go back to this tavern, walk in, and tie two men, bind them together, set one man on top of the other's lap, execute them both, and hang three women, and leaving with $1,500. That was his decision. And, maybe someday he'll deserve to be released, but In my opinion, I don't think it's today.
They went into that bar, the barn there, just to rob it?
Yeah, so they were in having eating and drinking when the facility was open. They left, came back at 2 o'clock, a little after 2, when the bar closed, beat on the door, and said that they had left their wallet in the booth. And so they opened the door to let them come in and get their wallet. And then that's when everything happened after that. And then as they walked out the back door to leave, Pauley turns around, they walk back in, and they execute the 2 men in the cooler.
They didn't want to leave any witnesses behind. They thought that the ropes around the necks of the other 3 would finish them off. But
right. And stripping them naked and making them crawl into the women's bathroom before they hung them from the bathroom stall. It's disgusting.
Did the family see the 2 men be executed?
No. They found the wife, Maggie, her husband was in. Angie and Kelly's dad was one of the ones that were executed.
Right. Joe, in the remaining minutes we have, Dave Reichert. Joe, you want to ask something?
It shocks me that remorse is a factor in his release. Like, how, if you murder 3 people in that manner, I don't care if I'm 1,000% convinced that you're remorseful, you're not getting out. Like that.
Right.
That's just there's no mulligans for triple murder.
Yeah. Well, and they thought they killed 5. And
5.
They thought they killed 5, right?
Yeah.
They hung the others.
Right.
Yeah, they thought they killed 5. But the thing here is that there was a law in place when they were convicted, where they were supposed to spend the rest of their life in prison without parole. And this is how we've sort of put in quotes progressed in our criminal justice system, where we do away with sentences for criminals like Pauley and his partner Smith, in the name of it's too cruel to give life sentences and not consider them 40 years down the road cured, rehabilitated, and ready to re-enter our community. I wouldn't want to live next door to the guy.
Nope.
And so what happens is they change the law, and then those that happen to think that the rights of criminals are more important than the rights of survivors and victims decide to release these people into our community. And we've seen it happen time and time again, where some of these dangerous criminals being released do reoffend, and they do commit violent crime.
Former Congressman Dave Reichert, and of course Sheriff Reichert, and friend of the Curley family. Thanks for spending some time. The big news is that Governor Bob Ferguson writes, quote, "After careful and thorough review of the records, I'm issuing an order canceling the parole of Timothy Pauley, who is serving a maximum term of life in prison for the triple murder he committed nearly 45 years ago." Close quote. Congratulations, Bob Ferguson. Way to go. And Dave Reichert, I'm sure you're going to be getting off the phone with us and calling the family, and hopefully they'll all be celebrating as best they possibly can that justice will continue to be served in the state of Washington.
Yep. I just got off the phone with Kelly before your call, and hard to have a conversation because she was crying so much.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some tears of joy for her.
Yeah, they were.
Okay. Thanks Dave.
John.
Take care of yourself.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.